My father looked straight at me in front of everyone and said I was a failure, like I had never built anything in my life, while my brother leaned back and laughed, telling the table I was just jealous of his success. But what they didn't know was the money they were celebrating wasn't even theirs. It had been under my control the entire time, and by the next morning, federal agents were already building a case off the paper trail I handed over. At exactly 6:42 a.m., they walked into his office and shut everything down, and a few months later, he was standing in court facing real prison time, all because he thought humiliating me was safe. He never realized he was provoking the one person who could legally destroy him. And that's the moment my revenge stopped being personal and became permanent. Chapter 1. My name is Lyra Kessler. I am 33, and in my family, I have always been the one people explain away when they run out of better answers. Dinner was already on the table when I walked in. Roasted chicken, green beans, that same vanilla cake my mother brings out when she wants everything to look normal. The TV in the living room was low, my father's usual finance channel ticking through mergers and layoffs like a scoreboard for people who matter. I sat down without saying much. My father did not look at me. So, still doing that freelance thing? I reached for my glass. Yeah, it has been steady. He gave a small laugh, the kind that sounds harmless until you feel it land. Steady is what people say when nothing is actually growing. No benefits, no retirement, no structure. At your age, people are buying homes, building something real. I nodded once. Same lines, different night. If you were not my daughter, he added, finally turning toward me, you would not even have a place to come back to. That one settled into my chest and stayed there. My mother moved too quickly, setting my plate down like she could outrun the moment. She did not look at me. She never does when he goes that far. I picked up my fork. The front door opened. Footsteps. Confident, unhurried. My younger brother walked in the room like the room had been waiting for him. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys. "Sorry I'm late." My father straightened instantly. "There he is." My brother pulled out his chair, relaxed, already smiling. "Actually, I've got some news." My father leaned forward. "What is it?" A beat. He always times it. "I got promoted, director level, Silver Line Logistics." My father hit the table with his palm, loud enough to shake the glasses. "That's my son." He laughed, shaking his head like something had just been proven. "Director, at your age." Then he looked at me. That's what happens when you stay focused, when you don't waste time pretending hobbies are careers. I kept my eyes on my plate. "Congratulations," I said. My brother smiled quick, almost rehearsed. "Thanks." He picked up his phone right after, scrolling like the moment was already over for him. "Next week, I get my own office, 14th floor." My fork stopped. Just for a second. 14th floor. That floor had been shut down, not recently, fully closed for renovation. I'd seen the internal report myself 3 days ago. Maybe they rushed it. Maybe I missed something. My father was still talking, louder now, energized. "You see this? This is how it works. Discipline, consistency, results." My brother leaned back, completely at ease. "Yeah, it's been a lot. Long hours, pressure." "Of course it has," my father said. "That's what separates you from people who never get anywhere." I felt that one land too. My mother finally sat down, folding her hands in her lap like she was holding something in place. I took a sip of water. 14th floor. It did not line up. I looked at my brother again. He was too comfortable. People who had just stepped into something real carried it differently. There's always a shift, even if they try to hide it. He did not have that. "What department are you leading?" I asked. He shrugged. "Operations. I'll be working directly with senior leadership." The wording sat wrong. Not incorrect, just borrowed. My father nodded, satisfied. "That's where you want to be, close to the top." I leaned back slightly. "Who signed off on it?" My brother answered too quickly. "Vice President of Operations." I let that sit. I'd seen that name earlier that week, not in a promotion chain, in an internal audit tied to irregular approvals. I picked up my glass but didn't drink. There was something else, a small thing, easy to miss. His watch. It was still set to Pacific time. He hadn't traveled in months. The room kept moving around me, plates shifting, my father talking about sacrifice like it was something only one person at this table understood. He wasn't wrong about success leaving clues. It does, just not the ones he thinks. I set my glass down slowly. If everything my brother said was true, then nothing should feel off. Not the floor, not the phrasing, not the approval, not the watch. But all of it did. And once something feels wrong in that many places, it stops being a feeling. It becomes a pattern. I looked at my father, still proud, still certain, then at my brother, relaxed, untouched by the weight he should have been carrying, and I realized something I should have seen years ago. In this house, the truth was never what mattered, only what was easier to believe. I picked up my fork again, study time. I didn't say anything else, not because I had nothing to say, but because I finally understood something simple. If I said it now, they would laugh. If I proved it later, they would have to listen. And I already knew which one I preferred.
Chapter 2. I kept eating like nothing had shifted, even though something already had. My father leaned back, still riding the moment like it proved everything he had ever said about me. 3.5 years, he said, shaking his head. Director level. That is what happens when you actually commit to something. He glanced at me. Not when you spend your life drifting between things that never go anywhere. A few quiet laughs followed. Not loud, not cruel on the surface, but enough. My brother smiled, but it was tighter now. Freelance is fine, he said, like he was softening it, if you do not have better options. That one landed clean. I set my fork down. My mother shifted beside me. I looked at her. She looked away. I turned back to my brother. Who signed off on it? He did not hesitate. Daniel Mercer, VP of Operations. My chest tightened for a second. That name should not still be in that role. I nodded slowly. That is a strong endorsement. My father leaned forward before my brother could say anything else. You think people just get handed positions like that? No, it takes the right backing, the right moves. I looked at him. Did you help him? A pause. Then he exhaled. I made sure he had access to an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? He waved it off like it was nothing. Internal, early entry, leadership track. I held his gaze. How much? Another pause. Then quieter. 180,000. The number settled into the room like something heavy dropped onto glass. My mother stopped moving completely. I did not look at her. That is your retirement, I said. My father's expression hardened instantly. That is my decision. For him. For my son, he snapped. For someone who actually knows how to build something real. My brother leaned in slightly. It is not like that. It is structured. Daniel said this is only offered to people being positioned for upper leadership. I kept my eyes on him. Structured how? Equity, early allocation. If you get in now, you lock your percentage before expansion. Expansion of what? He blinked. The division. Which division? Operations. Too fast again. Too clean. I leaned back slowly. That is not how that company is set up. My father scoffed. And you would know that how? Because I've seen their internal reports. Silence settled over the table. My brother let out a short laugh. You read reports now? I ignored that. What did he actually tell you? My brother crossed his arms, settling into something more defensive. That they are restructuring, that this is how you get ahead before everyone else even knows it's happening. My father nodded like that confirmed everything. That is how real opportunities work. Not everything is public. I felt it clicking into place, every piece lining up whether I wanted it to or not. The floor, the phrasing, the approval, and now the money. I leaned forward slightly. What did you sign? He hesitated. Just standard documents. What documents? Non-disclosure, entry agreement, allocation forms. Did you read them? Of course I did. That was not what I asked. Did you understand them? His jaw tightened. It is not complicated. Then explain it. My father's voice cut in, sharper now. Why are you doing this? I did not look at him. Because something is wrong. There it was, out loud. My brother shook his head. You always do this. You try to tear things down because you cannot build anything yourself. That one hit harder than the rest. My father nodded. He is right. You have never built anything in your life, so stop acting like you understand how any of this works. The room went quiet after that. For a second, it almost felt like it tilted. Then something inside me settled instead. That was the moment I stopped trying to make this conversation comfortable. That was the moment I realized this was not a promotion. It was something else. I looked at my brother again. The 14th floor is closed. He frowned. What? It has been shut down for renovation. It is not operational. A pause. Then he shrugged. Maybe they reopened it. They did not. My father leaned forward. And you're sure of that? Yes, because I checked 3 days ago. My brother shifted again. Subtle, but there. Even if that is true, he said, things change. You are not inside the company. No, I said, but I know how companies like that work. My father shook his head. You think reading a few things makes you smarter than everyone else. I ignored him. What office did they give you? My brother hesitated. Corner. Facing what? The city? Which side? He stared at me. Why does that matter? Because if you actually had it, you would know. Silence stretched tight. My mother's fingers curled slightly into her lap. My brother let out a forced laugh. You are overthinking this. Maybe. I nodded. Then I asked the question that mattered. When do they need the rest? He froze. Just enough. My father stepped in quickly. There is no rest. I did not look at him. I kept my eyes on my brother. Is there? A second passed. Then he looked away. They said there might be another phase. Of course they did. How much? He swallowed. Another 150. The air in the room shifted again. My father opened his mouth, then stopped. I leaned back slowly. That is not a promotion. No one spoke. That is a buy-in. My brother shook his head. You do not know that. I looked at him. I know enough. And now it was clear. Every detail pointing in the same direction. Not opportunity, not growth. A setup. Something designed to look real until it was too late to question it. I picked up my glass again. Study. This is not what you think it is. My father's voice came back, sharper. Then what is it? I held his gaze for a second. Then I looked at my brother. For the first time since I walked in, the confidence was not there. Something else had replaced it. Something quieter. Something closer to doubt. I set the glass down. This is not going to end the way you think. No one answered. But no one laughed either. And that was when I knew. Something had already started, and none of them could see it yet.
Chapter 3. I stayed seated for a moment longer, letting the silence press in until it felt real. Then I pushed my chair back and stood. I'm getting water. No one stopped me. My father waved me off like I was already gone. Go ahead. The kitchen felt colder than the rest of the house. I reached for a glass, filled it halfway, then set it down without drinking. My phone was already in my hand. Another message came in. Caleb, you need to call me now. I stared at it for a second, then pressed call. He picked up right away. You saw it, didn't you? Say it, I said. A pause. They closed the deal, full acquisition, quiet transfer. When? 5:18. I checked the time. 5:42. My chest tightened. What happens to internal leadership? Most of them get pushed out, he said. Some get absorbed, depends who they want to keep. I glanced toward the dining room. My father's voice carried through the hallway, steady, confident. They are offering early buy-ins right now, aren't they? Yeah. Before any of this is public? Yeah. I closed my eyes for a second. They are pulling money in before people realize what is about to change. He did not answer right away. Then quietly, that is how it usually works. Usually? A longer pause. This is not the first time. Something cold settled in my chest. People lost money. Everything, he said, and legally they could not get it back. I opened my eyes. Send me anything you have. You want to get pulled into this? I already am. Another pause. Then he said something that made my grip tighten. Lyra, I have seen one of those internal lists. What list? The people who bought in early. My voice stayed steady. And? I think your brother's name is on it. The room tilted for a second. When was the list updated? Earlier today. I swallowed. Send it. I will. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still in my hand. That was the part no one at the table understood yet. This had already moved past the point of suspicion. This was already in motion, and motion like that does not slow down for anyone. I walked back into the dining room. My brother was still talking. I'm telling you, this is how people get ahead. You cannot wait around for opportunities. My father nodded. Exactly. I pulled my chair out and sat down. This time, I placed my phone on the table, face down. Neither of them noticed, or maybe they chose not to. What happens after the next phase? I asked. My brother looked at me. What? The second round, after you put in more money. He frowned. They said expansion, new divisions, growth. Who is funding it? I do not know. Who takes control after expansion? They said leadership stays consistent. I let out a quiet breath. That is not true. My father's hand hit the table. You need to stop. I did not look at him. Most of that leadership is about to be replaced. My brother shook his head. You don't know that. I do. How? I met his eyes. Because the company was just sold. Silence. Heavy. My brother blinked. What? It closed less than 30 minutes ago. He let out a short laugh. That is not possible. It is. My father leaned forward. You can't just make claims like that. I'm not making claims, I said. I'm telling you what already happened. My brother stared at me. If that were true, we would know. No, I said quietly. You would not. Why? Because the people who know are the ones making money off the people who don't. That landed. My brother's expression shifted. Not fully, but enough. They wouldn't offer something like this if it wasn't real. They would, if they needed capital before everything changes. My father shook his head, his voice rising. This is insane. You're turning something good into a problem. I turned to him. I'm trying to stop you from losing everything. I'm not losing anything. You already moved 180,000. That's an investment. That's exposure. His jaw tightened. You don't get to talk to me like that. And you don't get to ignore what's right in front of you. The room narrowed. My brother leaned forward. What exactly are you saying? I held his gaze. I'm saying this was designed to look like a promotion. He did not respond. I'm saying the timing is not a coincidence. Still nothing. And I'm saying you're not the only one. That made him pause. What do you mean? I picked up my phone and turned it over. A new message had already come in. Caleb. I opened it. A screenshot. A list of names, investment entries, dates, amounts. I slid the phone across the table. Look. My brother hesitated, then picked it up. His eyes moved across the screen, slow, then faster. What is this? People who bought in early. My father leaned in. Let me see that. My brother did not hand it over. He kept reading. His expression changed. "These dates," he said quietly, "they match when they reached out to me." I nodded once. "They build it in waves." He kept staring at the screen. Then his hand stopped, right near the middle. He froze. "What?" I didn't answer. He looked up at me, then back down. "No." My voice stayed calm. "What?" He turned the phone toward me. There it was. His name. And underneath, another entry. My father's name. For a second, no one spoke. My father leaned forward. "What is that?" My brother's voice dropped. "You put in more money?" The room went still. I looked at my father. "How much?" He did not answer. I did not look away. "How much?" His voice came out tighter this time. "Another 100. My chest tightened. "When?" He hesitated. "This afternoon. Before dinner. Before any of this." I leaned back slowly. That was the moment everything locked into place. Not just the setup, not just the risk, but the timing. They had already gone deeper, before I even walked through the door. My brother stared at the table. "They said it was required to secure my position." Of course they did. I looked at both of them. Neither of them looked back. "This is not a promotion." My voice was quieter now, but it carried. This was designed to look like a trap. No one argued. No one laughed. My father sat there rigid, my brother still staring at the phone. And for the first time that night, the certainty was gone from both of them, replaced with something else, something heavier, something real. I picked up my glass and finally drank, slow, because now I knew this was not something that might happen. This had already happened, and the worst part was not what they'd lost, it was what was coming next, because people who build something like this don't stop after one round, they keep going, and we were already in too deep to walk away. I set the glass down, and for the first time that night, I realized something I couldn't ignore. We weren't early, we were already late.
Chapter 4. I kept my hand still on the table so no one could see it shake. Not from fear, from the realization that I had waited too long to step in. "Dylan," I said, keeping my voice even, "what exactly did you sign tonight?" He looked up at me like I had just interrupted something trivial. "What are you talking about?" "The documents," I said. "The investment, the bonus terms, the equity clauses. You read them, right?" A pause. Not long, just enough. "Yeah," he said. "I read them." I nodded once, then looked at my father. He was watching me now, not annoyed anymore, curious, careful. "Then you should both know," I said quietly, "that the transfer you authorized is not going anywhere." My father's jaw tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means the account is frozen," I said, "and the funds are flagged." Dylan let out a short laugh, the kind people use when they think something is a joke they do not understand yet. "Flagged by who?" I slid my phone across the table. "Take a look." He hesitated, then picked it up. His eyes moved fast at first, then slowed, then stopped. The color drained out of his face in a way I had never seen before. My father stood up so abruptly his chair scraped hard against the floor. "That is not possible." "It is already happening," I said. Silence settled in the room, heavy and real. No one moved to fill it. I let it sit, let it press down on them the way it had pressed down on me months ago when I first understood what they were doing. Dylan swallowed. "This says audit. This says investigation. That is about Vaughn, not us." "Every transaction tied to him is under review," I said, "including the one you just signed your name to." He shook his head, but slower now, less certain. "No, that does not make sense. This was cleared." "Cleared by who?" He did not answer. My father finally spoke, his voice sharper now. "You are overreacting. We have lawyers for this. This will get resolved." I met his eyes. "For once," I said, "this is not something you can smooth over with a phone call." His expression shifted. Not anger, not yet. something closer to unease. "There's more," I said. Dylan looked up again, and I could see it now, the moment he realized he had missed something important. "What more?" I took a breath, not to steady myself, but to make sure I did not rush it. "Silver Ridge Capital was acquired this afternoon," I said. Dylan blinked. "So what?" "At 5:18, a controlling stake was transferred." My father stared at me. "Transferred to who?" I stepped forward just enough to close the distance between us. "To me." Nothing moved. Not the air, not their expressions, just a long, stretched second where the meaning had not fully landed yet. Then it did. Dylan's mouth opened slightly. "That is not funny. I'm not joking. You do not even work there," he said, but the confidence was gone now. "You said you were consulting, freelance work. That's what you said." "I said what I needed to say," I replied. My father shook his head slowly. No, this is not how this works. You don't just walk in and take over a firm like that." "I did not walk in," I said. "I built the position, quietly, piece by piece, while you were busy assuming I was behind." The word hung there. Behind. For a long time, that had been my place. Not anymore. Dylan looked down at the phone again, then back at me. "You're saying you own the company that just offered me a position?" "I'm saying you signed a contract tonight with a firm that I control." His breathing changed now, faster. My father took a step closer to me. "You planned this?" "Yes." "When?" "A while ago." His voice dropped. "Against your own family?" I held his gaze. "You stopped acting like my family a long time ago." That landed harder than anything else I had said. He flinched, just a little. Dylan shook his head again, but this time it wasn't denial. It was panic trying to find a place to go. "You set me up. You let me walk into this." "I gave you every chance to ask questions. You chose not to." "Because I trusted you." The words came out sharper than he expected. I did not look away. "You trusted what was convenient. That is not the same thing." My father's hands were clenched now. "You think this is power. You think this makes you untouchable. I think this changes the rules. For everyone." He let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You always needed to prove something." "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped needing your approval." That was the moment he lost his footing. Not physically. Something else. The certainty he carried for years cracked, and there was nothing underneath it. Dylan leaned back in his chair, like the room had shifted around him. "What happens now?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to feel the space where the answer should be, the same way I had felt it when I realized what they had already done. "Finally," I said, "now everything gets reviewed." "Reviewed how?" "Thoroughly." My father scoffed, but it sounded forced. "You're not the law." "No," I said, "but I know exactly how to bring it to the people who are." That landed, harder than anything else. Dylan looked at my father, then back at me. "You would really do that?" "I already did." The silence that followed was different. Not confusion, not disbelief, understanding. Slow, heavy, final. My father exhaled and looked away for the first time. Dylan sat there staring at nothing, like he was trying to rewind the last hour and find the moment where he should have stopped. There was none. That was the point. I picked up my phone from the table and slipped it back into my pocket. Neither of them tried to stop me. Neither of them said another word. And as I turned to leave, I realized something else. They still thought this was the end of it. They still thought this was the moment everything had been decided. They had no idea. This was just the part where they finally understood that they were not in control anymore.
Chapter 5. I stepped out into the cold air and let the door close behind me. For a second, I just stood there, breathing. Not because I was overwhelmed,
because I finally was not. Inside that house, everything always felt tight, like I was waiting for someone to remind me who I was supposed to be. Out here, it was quiet, and for once, it stayed that way. I walked down the driveway slowly, gravel shifting under my shoes, the sound grounding me in a way nothing inside ever did. My phone buzzed before I reached the street. I already knew what it was tied to. I answered. "It is done," I said. A short pause, then a calm voice. "The bank confirmed. The transfer is on hold. Compliance flagged it this morning." "Good," I said. "There is more. Vaughn's department is under review. Your brother is included." I closed my eyes for a second, not out of relief, just recognition. How long? 48 hours, maybe less. It would not take that long. It never did. "Keep me updated," I said, then ended the call. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and kept walking. Each step felt lighter, not like I had won something, but like I had finally put something down. I reached my car and sat inside without starting it. My hands rested on the wheel, steady. No second guessing, no hesitation. My phone buzzed again. Dylan. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I did not answer. A message came through. "Please pick up." I looked at it, then locked the screen. There was nothing left to say. He had made his choices, so had I. The next morning came quietly. I was already awake, sitting at the counter, coffee untouched. My phone was full. Emails, alerts, missed calls. I opened the first one. Regulatory action initiated. I read it slowly. Every line matched, every detail where it was supposed to be. No surprises. That was the point. Another call came in. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello?" A pause. Then my father's voice, lower than I had ever heard it. "They came this morning." I did not respond. They asked about the transfer, about Vaughn, about everything. I let a second pass. "That was expected. You did this." "Yes." Silence. "I thought you were bluffing." "I do not bluff." Another pause. He sounded different now, not angry, not certain. "What happens now?" "You cooperate," I said. "You tell the truth." "And if I do not?" "It gets worse." He exhaled slowly. "I underestimated you." "You did." No argument, no defense, just quiet. "Lyra," he said, "I do not know how to fix this." I closed my eyes briefly. "You cannot fix everything," I said. "You can only face it." He did not respond. The line stayed open, then ended. I set the phone down and sat there in the quiet. No noise, no pressure, just space. The day moved on. Calls, meetings, documents, everything that had been building quietly, now happening out in the open. By the afternoon, it had already started spreading. Names, connections, questions. Exactly how it was supposed to unfold. Another message came later. My mother. I did not know how to stop it. I read it once, then again, then I put the phone down. There was nothing I could give her that would change anything. That part was over. The sun was setting when I left. The city looked different at that hour, not quieter, just clearer. I stood there for a moment, watching the light fade. I used to think closure would feel bigger, like something loud and final, but it wasn't. It was simple, steady, the absence of something that had been there too long. My phone buzzed one last time. Case moving forward, no reversals expected. I looked at the screen, then locked it. That was it. No more waiting, no more guessing, just consequences, already in motion. I took a breath and let it out slowly. Then I started walking, not back, not toward anything I used to be, just forward. They thought I had nothing. They thought I was behind. They were wrong. I did not lose anything. They lost everything. If you were in my place, would you have spoken sooner or let them face the outcome on their own. If you value stories where strength is quiet but unshakable, subscribe.